A big polar bear size hello to everyone. Polar bears are one of the largest mammals on the planet, and with that size comes high intelligence and a natural instinct to travel through their environment, investigating what's going on, oh, and who's around. Polar bears can run fast if they need to, but they usually move at a pretty slow pace in order to conserve their energy in the cold. Polar bears' bodies are built to handle tough climates that would be difficult for many other animals to live in. And they are big animals, standing 6 to 9 feet tall on their hind legs and weighing up to 1,500 pounds. Their thick fur is insulated to help keep out the wind and ice as they walk across the cold Arctic tundra. The rough skin on the bottom of their paws and their short, thick claws helps them to grip the sea ice where they live so that they don't slip. And their strong sense of smell helps them to track their natural diet of seals from almost a mile away. Now, it is not uncommon for polar bears to have a natural range or roaming area of several hundred miles. And one female polar bear was tracked almost 3,000 miles from Alaska to Greenland, then to Canada. Polar bears live on sea ice in the Arctic Circle, which includes land from 5 countries: the USA, Canada, Greenland, Norway, and Russia. In the 1970s, after huge declines in polar bear populations, these countries came together and declared themselves the 5 polar bear nations, dedicating their resources to helping polar bears survive. These areas of sea ice in the Arctic Circle are always changing as ice melts down in the summer and refreezes in the winter. In some places, like Canada's Hudson Bay, this sea ice will completely disappear in the summer, and polar bears in this region have to wait on land until the ice freezes over again in the fall before they can hunt. In other places, like the high Arctic, the sea ice is so thick that not many seals live in these parts. Polar bears in areas like these with less sea ice or very, very thick sea ice may have to travel further for food and have longer fasting periods where they go hungry. The quality of sea ice in the Arctic Circle is the most important factor that affects polar bears' existence. Polar bears use sea ice to hunt, to track other bears during mating season, and to build dens where they give birth and raise their young. Because of loss of sea ice due to warming oceans, polar bears in 2008 were listed as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act. What can we do to help polar bears? Together, we can do a lot. The first thing we can do is keep visiting the Detroit Zoo. This supports the zoo's work helping polar bear habitat conservation and research about areas where polar bear populations are declining. With the help of bears like Nuka, Suka, and Anana, the 3 polar bears in our care, zoo researchers have been able to understand what polar bears need to thrive in the wild. For example, the ability to study the kinds of sounds that may be disturbing to polar bears in their Arctic den is research that is then taken to companies who work in the Arctic so they can move their equipment far away from polar bear dens. Zoo bears also help us understand how important sea ice is to polar bear survival. The biggest threat right now to polar bears is declining sea ice. That's where you can have a direct impact on polar bear welfare by reducing your carbon footprint. Your carbon footprint is a measurement of how many fossil fuels you use. Things like oil, coal, and gas, which we use to heat our homes, run our cars, and power our electricity. The emissions created when we use fossil fuels create a heat-trapping blanket that contributes to climate change and habitat loss. This means that turning your thermostat down just 1 degree in the winter has a direct impact to save the polar bear habitats. So put a sweater over that t-shirt and turn that thermostat down. You can also make sure you reduce what you consume and reuse what has already been produced by choosing items that can be reused or donated. And when possible, you can also recycle. Instead of throwing everything in the trash, recycle paper, plastic, glass, and metal, and buy recycled products. Recycling is good for the environment because it reduces the resources we use to make stuff. You can also remember to turn off the lights whenever you leave a room. Every time you turn a light off, you save energy and use less natural resources. Fossil fuels. So remember, reduce your carbon footprint, consume less, reuse before buying new, and recycle when you can. And don't forget to visit the Detroit Zoo and stop by the Arctic Ring of Life habitat and look for Nuka, Suka, and Anana. And thank you so much for your continued support of the Detroit Zoo. Hey, bye-bye.